But first, we have got to answer a listener's question. And you know what that means. Hit it! International question! International question! International question! Anonymous, Canada. Sugar wanted to join in on that one.
Sugar wanted to answer the question.
All right. Anonymous says, hello, Allison and Gabby. First of all, I love you both so much. I've been following you two for years, and you have both been such an important part of my mental health and queer journey. Anyway, the TLDR of my question is, how do I balance my own sexual needs with my partner's when we're living together? My partner of 4 years and I are planning to move in together soon for the first time. Throughout our relationship, we haven't had the most consistent sex life. We live pretty far apart and don't see each other as often as we'd like. On top of that, sometimes sex is painful for me, and I get very anxious about accidentally getting pregnant. For health-related issues, I'm not on birth control. All those things combined makes it hard for me to relax and enjoy myself during sex, so we don't do it very often. My partner has never pressured me into having sex or made me feel guilty about it. And he's also a very giving partner who prioritizes my pleasure, so when I am in the mood, it's great. But I know he can't control his arousal and probably feels disappointed when I don't want to do it. We're moving in together soon, which would remove external barriers like distance and roommates, but I'm worried that I still might be hesitant about having sex as much as he would like to. Furthermore, I love masturbation. It's quick and easy, no drama, and it gets the job done so I can go to sleep. I feel like when we live together, it will be harder to get that time to myself, and I would feel guilty about doing it instead of having sex with my partner. But most times, I just want to get off without having to worry about pain or getting pregnant or a UTI. How do I balance my sexual needs with my partners when we're living together? Sorry if anything was TMI. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Sincerely, Anonymous from Canada, she/any. Well, what are we defining as sex?
Great question.
I knew this was going to be why Allison chose this. Because you're defining sex, I assume, as penetrative P&V, which I'm assuming not what you're doing when you're masturbating, right? So if you're not enjoying P&V, how is that not having sex in other ways? Like you don't have to do it the way that hurts you. You don't have to do it in a way that could get you pregnant. There's so many other, it's interesting. There's this false narrative, I think, that most couples are doing it that way. And like, if you're not, there's something wrong. And I think if you honestly polled people, it would not be true. I think like there's so many other ways to, like, as you say, get off and like have relations with each other that like, I just don't think you need to be all or nothing about either we're doing this P&V thing that hurts me or I'm scared of getting pregnant and I can't fully relax, or we're not doing anything.
Yeah. And I also, I've been interviewing a good amount of sex therapists for my next book, and it's very normal for a couple to have different sex drives. Mm-hmm. Like that's, I think that the first thing is to normalize that. So I totally get the fear, but also like that's a lot of couples that's not necessarily a reflection of your relationship. Mm-hmm. Everyone has different sex drives. So like, what are the chances that yours is going to perfectly align with your partner? Like maybe that happens, but most of the time it doesn't. I think a lot of these fears can be potentially alleviated by having some conversations with your partner, right? And so it's really scary and uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about their sex life with their partner directly, but it can be incredibly beneficial. So for you to even say like, hey, we're moving in together soon, I'm a little worried about these things, and just see how they respond, like maybe they're not worried about it at all, and you're maybe projecting some worry onto a situation. And I also think, really speaking to what Gabby said about like the masturbation of it all could become something that is a solo activity sometimes, but it also could be a couple activity other times, so that you are being intimate in a way more frequently while still not feeling like you're having to sacrifice this time that you really like and that helps you unwind.
Yeah, I also think there's a sentence here that I want to latch onto, which is he can't control his arousal and probably feels disappointed. So probably it tells me you haven't asked how he feels about it. if he's actually disappointed or not, or if he's just like, okay, and moves on. And also can't control his arousal is kind of a myth about men that I think people have. I will say men, aside from penis havers, because I think people put testosterone in the mix as the reason. And I just think that is a false narrative that has been sold to us by the media. And I would say more often than not, that is a pressure that we put on men that they don't actually naturally have. And I have been told, feel embarrassed or less than for not constantly having this arousal they can't control. And so I think that it does men a disservice, and it kind of does your partner a disservice to assume that he can't control his arousal, that he's like so upset and worried about this, that also people get aroused and then they go, all right, and they either jerk off or they just move on with the day. It's not like, oh my God, this is a huge thing, we have to take care of this. It's just a part of life. And I don't know. I feel like people make a really big deal about being like, I'm not in the mood, or turning stuff down. And I personally, I get worked up about it. I get nervous that oh my God, if I don't, if I'm horny right now, I got to take advantage of it with my partner because, who knows when the next wave's coming. But it's also you're allowed to have your own private life within a relationship. So maybe this is TMI, but sometimes we'll be like, hey, do you we'll be like, Mal and either of us will be like, hey, do you want to have sex right now? No. Okay. I'm going to go jerk off. Okay. Move on. Sometimes, and that's us living together.
Yeah. And I think that there is this fear that if you say no, that the other person will feel rejected and that it will have these long-term impact on your relationship. And that's why it's really important to kind of share this stuff with your partner, right? So that they don't take it as personally. It's to be able to say, I do have a bit of a lower sex drive than you. Here are my reasons why. Here's, also what can you do to get rid of maybe those barriers? So what can your partner do to maybe ease your anxiety around it? And maybe that is exactly what Gabby was saying, not have it be penetrative sex, because then you're not dealing with the pregnancy worry of it all. I just think that there is so much more to these kinds of relationships than we give credit for when we just hyper focus on just one version of intimacy.
Just between us.